Hi, I'm Rebekah Radice, social media strategist, and you're listening to the Go Creative Show.
Hey everyone, my name is Ben Consoli. I am a director and owner of BC Media Productions, and this is the Go Creative Show, the show dedicated to creative professionals in the video production, filmmaking, television, and music industries. Today we talk with social media strategist Rebekah Radice about how you can build your brand, make connections, and find more work using social media. The Go Creative Show is supported by our friends at Kessler, making innovative tools for filmmakers. Visit them at KesslerCrane.com. Rule Boston Camera, buy, rent, create at Rule.com. Newsshooter.com, essential news for real-world shooters. Shutterstock.com. Hedge for Mac, the fastest way to back up media. And PremiumBeat.com. Premium, royalty-free music and sound. So if you're like me, you have accounts on all sorts of social media networks, but you don't really use them effectively, and you can sometimes get overwhelmed with them. And that's what today's show is all about. I wanted to make sure that we give some information to our audience on how to utilize social media to drive more business. That's why we're using it, right? So that's what we're here today to talk about, and that's what we talk about with Rebekah Radice, and it's coming up in just a few minutes. But before we get there, I want to talk about Rule Boston Camera. Rule Boston Camera is the place to go to purchase and rent all of your production equipment. And I just did both of those things in the past couple of weeks. Love those guys. But when you go to Rule.com, you see right away that it's not just about purchasing and renting. It's also about learning. Go to Rule.com, and there's 3 tabs there. Rent, buy, learn. And when you click on learn, it gives you access to all of their upcoming and past events. Now, what do I mean by that? Okay, you go to calendar and you can RSVP for upcoming events, but you can also click on videos and you have access to the learning labs from previous events. Now, they've got some great events. Just in the past couple of months, they have, let's see, what do we have? Oh, look at this. Mixing Audio for Picture by Matt Russell, and that's our very own Matt Russell, so you got to check that one out. They also have the Panasonic DVX200 Masterclass and lighting tools from Aladdin. Okay. Now there's others, but I picked out those 3 because they're so varied in topics. We have audio, we have camera, and we have lighting. I mean, this is the type of information that we all crave, and it's for free at Rule.com, RULE.com. So check them out. And lastly, Hedge for Mac. Hedge for Mac is the fastest application for importing and backing up media on OS X. It has a simple interface, but it's very powerful. And it's built for video, photo, and audio in mind. You can import from multiple sources and send to multiple destinations, all at the same time. It's extremely fast because it's optimized for 100 megabytes and larger, and those are the types of files that we're working with. And it's much faster than the Finder. Did I mention fast? I did, and I'm going to continue mentioning it because that's what's so important to us. We want fast, we want quality, and we want to make sure that the files are being not only backed up, but verified. And that's what you're going to get with Hedge for Mac. Now, they have a free version, and you should check it out, but I can't recommend this enough. Get the paid version. It's $100, but with if you go to hedgeformac.com/Go Creative Show, you get 20% off. So it's really a no-brainer. And believe me, that is the best few dollars that you will spend because it's going to give you peace of mind like nothing else. Hedgeformac.com/Go Creative Show to get 20% off the paid version. And I'm telling you, people, you will love this application. Hedgeformac.com/Go Creative Show. And of course, I'll put a link to it in the show notes. All right, it's time to move on to our spotlight. Rebekah Radice is an award-winning content marketer whose entrepreneurial roots, instincts, and unstoppable energy create a powerful force for strategic business growth. Social media is a tool, and when used correctly, can help you build an audience, a network, and even build your personal brand. We've all seen people in the industry rise up through social media, and Rebekah teaches us how to post more effectively, what mistakes to avoid, and how to use social media to drive more business. So I'm here with Rebekah Radice, social media strategist, and I have to say, this type of show is what I'm most excited about with Go Creative Show because, as you've heard, we have a lot of director of photography from TV shows and movies and stuff, but it's this type of content that we're going to talk about today that is really helpful to the listeners. And that's why I love having people like you on. So thank you for doing it.
Oh, my pleasure. Great to be here.
Obviously, social media is a world unto itself, as I'm sure you tell all of your clients. So I'm just curious right here at the top, like what drew you to it?
That is a terrific question. For me, it was a couple of different things. First of all, it was probably the fact that I come from a media background, so spent many years in morning radio. And I think it was an entertainment platform initially. I really saw it as a way to connect with an audience in a very unique way, as opposed to traditional marketing, which, we were all so firmly entrenched in for quite some time. And on the flip side of that, it was a way for me to start to create content with a very specific audience in mind. I started my blog back in 2004. And, back then there was no such thing as blogging. We weren't really talking about what we now know as, a blog and a website and that home base. For me, it was really just more a way, like I said, to connect with a very targeted group of people that were interested in the same thing that I was. And so the natural progression from the blog was social media. And I first got started in LinkedIn and then over to Twitter. And it just blossomed from there as I saw not only the enormous opportunity, but also just that ability to interact on a very different level than we had the ability to do previously, and making those connections with people that you never would have been able to do otherwise. And so as I started to get further and further into it, I felt that bug bite me pretty hard, pretty quickly, as I think my eyes were opened to what it was going to be able to do, not only for my business, but anybody's business that was out there creating content, actively marketing their business, and looking to create transformation within their marketing. Because I think we were all feeling a little stagnant with what we were doing at the time too. So I think there was a nice convergence of several things that took place that not only drew me to social media, but a whole lot of other people at the same time.
My God, yes. It has totally taken over. I mean, you're right. I think LinkedIn, it's funny that you mentioned LinkedIn as sort of one of the first ones that you explored, because I think a lot of us, their first entry into social media was probably MySpace. And, building your own little personal sites and communicating in an online world. And I think LinkedIn it's been so much the standard for like professional relationships and professional communication that it's interesting that that's kind of where you started.
Yeah, for me, from day one, it was about making those business connections. And I just had a very strong feeling about LinkedIn. And I just remember poring over LinkedIn, every aspect of it, every change that happened, and making as many connections, both locally, but within my industry, as I possibly could. And I'll tell you, between that and the networking that I did during those first few years, it was really what launched my entire brand, allowed me to kick open the doors to so many different opportunities that I just didn't even see coming. So it's funny because I talk a lot about LinkedIn as it being kind of my first social media love. And sure, I was on MySpace, but it just never really interested me in the way, obviously, it did so many other people. And I think it just came back to that my motivation was different in who I was looking to connect with, but also how I was looking to connect with people, and not just wanting to sporadically throw myself out there and hope that I would make those connections, but instead really be more strategic. And LinkedIn allowed me to do that.
I think LinkedIn is such a great resource because it for some reason has been able to stay professional even through all the years. I really feel like people are tailoring their posts and tailoring the material that they share to LinkedIn differently than they would Facebook or Instagram, Twitter, whatever. It feels very different. It feels like you're always in more of a business networking mindset on LinkedIn. And it's great because people that either aren't necessarily good at face-to-face networking or don't live in big cities where, they can meet a lot of people that perhaps they may want to, LinkedIn offers them this opportunity that they otherwise wouldn't have.
Yeah, it's definitely maintained that professional vibe where you're right. So many of the platforms have evolved over time, and LinkedIn most definitely has. Back in the day, it was really just a static resume. It was your way of putting up there everything that you'd done, including your skills and your current employment, and just a way, I think, for people to do some due diligence on you prior to reaching out, prior to actually connecting with you. And today, yeah, I mean, my goodness, you look at the amount of content that's shared, and not just curated content, but now people are creating content specifically for LinkedIn. And there's a whole different thought process behind how you share content on LinkedIn. People have definitely embraced the professional atmosphere, and I think really respected that over the years instead of just spamming LinkedIn. Well, and of course, there are certainly those people, but for the most part, I think people have been very respectful of the fact that when you share content on LinkedIn, you need to put some thought into it. It needs to be professionally focused, but also focused on your audience, the people you're making those connections with. So I think it is really interesting to see how it's evolved, how different it is today, but how true it has remained to its original roots.
So I know you've heard a couple episodes of the Go Creative Show, but just to kind of like put it out there, our audience is primarily production industry people, whether it be, amateurs that just dabble in, photography or a little bit of video and maybe making home videos with their family, whatever, all the way up to production company business owners to, top level director of photographies, directors, cinematographers. So I think kind of going through the rest of this interview, sort of thinking in terms of what's best for that population might be good if you think that there's a difference in, what's best for that population. And what I'd love to do is kind of talk about some of the different social media networks, I guess you'd call them, and what best practices there are. And since we've been talking about LinkedIn, we can start there. What do you think is the best way to use LinkedIn for, the people that you're speaking to and the people that we're speaking to?
Well, I think first and foremost, LinkedIn is just like any other social network where you need to get on there. You need to complete your bio. You need to get consistency across all of your social networks. So everything from your headshot to your logo, if you've got one, to creating that cover on LinkedIn, really utilizing imagery, which obviously is a big deal to your audience, and being able to connect people to who you are, what you do, what you're all about, and who you help. And LinkedIn allows you to do that in a lot more detail than any other social network. So take advantage of talking about everything that you've done throughout your career. You really want to think about what are those accolades or those successes, the skills that you've acquired over the years that people are going to want to know about. Those are those decision-making details that they need to know about you. There are also those key differentiators, those things that quite possibly as they're looking at you compared to your competition, they're making a decision on your background and what you've done in the past. And not only that, but what you're working on right now. What do you have going on that would be of interest to them? So really think about your audience, who you're looking to connect with. And when I say audience, I mean social media audience. But what's your end goal? Who is that customer, that prospect that you're looking to connect with, and put yourself in their shoes? What would they want to know about you? And why would they want to connect with you on LinkedIn? Well, for the most part, it's because you're a professional. They want to know more about what you've done and what's brought you to where you are. So as I said, I can't stress enough with LinkedIn that you utilize every aspect of real estate that you've got going on over there, because you really can beef it up, so to speak, in the sense that you don't have that much room over on maybe an Instagram or a Snapchat, where LinkedIn, you have all the room in the world to give all of those details that they're looking for. So first and foremost, it's just being, really thoughtful in the information that you're providing within your bio.
Now, when you say you have all the room in the world, are you talking in literal terms, like we have this screen real estate, or are you talking in terms of people tend to spend more time on LinkedIn versus Twitter or Instagram? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, and that's a great question. I think it's a combination of both. So, first of all, you do have a lot more space with employment and skills and education to really spell that out on LinkedIn, give all of those details. So if you wanted to go back 20 years and you wanted to give every job you've ever done, every client you've ever worked with, you could definitely do that. If you want to add in testimonials, if you want to add in links to maybe your various sites where you can show off your work. You can do all of that within LinkedIn. So it's what I meant by that is just really taking advantage of, and the cool part about LinkedIn too is they show you exactly how much you've completed within your bio. So maybe you've completed 25%, 50%, 90%, and they're going to show you. They'll kind of walk you through what you've missed, what you haven't filled out, what you haven't completed. So you have a lot of room to tell your story. And then, yes, you do have those people that they're just simply coming to LinkedIn as a social network where they are interested in making connections. They don't enjoy being on Facebook. They don't enjoy being on Instagram or Snapchat. So you have to think about that too, in what kind of experience are you creating, so that if there is that person that isn't connecting with you anywhere else, they can really get to know who you are at the core, what your business is all about, and not have to leave LinkedIn, bounce around, or find you anywhere else.
I just did a shoot the other day with someone who asked for a business card, and I gave them the business card and they took a picture of it, gave me back the card, and they said, "I'll find you on LinkedIn." And that was the first time that ever, you obviously find people on LinkedIn, but that's the first time that ever happened so blatantly. Like, I don't even want the physical card. I just want to find you on LinkedIn. And I immediately got like a pit in my stomach. I'm like, oh my God, I don't think my LinkedIn is really that great right now. But I mean, that goes to show you that this may be the way that things are going to be going.
Yeah, and we've definitely seen that for a while, where business cards are kind of going by the wayside and people are using digital technology, apps that it just makes it so easy to take a picture and automatically transfer it into, a contact database, or to automatically connect with you right on LinkedIn. So yeah, you do need to consider that just because you're out dealing with people on a local level, one-on-one, face-to-face, doesn't mean that they're not looking you up beforehand, doesn't mean that they're not wanting to connect with you or follow you across these social channels. So it is a really good idea to take stock, do a little audit. And I know sometimes the word audit is, a little scary.
Especially for our audience.
It doesn't have to be scary in the social media world. I promise. It's something you can do very quickly, but just again, look at Facebook, look at LinkedIn, look at your social networks through the eyes of your audience. And if you were going to hire you, what would you think? What would be your big takeaways? And what could you improve upon? What could you do a little bit better that would help people better get to know you or better understand you? And in reality, what social media is so much there for is building those connections, allowing people to really feel as if they know you before they ever do actually meet you. So you need to give them the tools to not only get to know you, but to want to take that next step with you. So to make an informed decision about why they want to work with you, why they want to hire you, why they would even want to reach out to you and make that connection. And yeah, LinkedIn is, I think, it's one of those social networks that is a great place to start, a great place to make sure you've got every I dotted, every T crossed. And the good news about it is it's not as much work. So if social media feels heavy to you and you just think, oh, I don't have the time, I don't have the energy. The good news with LinkedIn is it's not as high maintenance as some of the other social networks.
Is that because the expectation isn't as high for you to be constantly giving people content? Or like, why is it low maintenance or lower maintenance?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there. It's a very different social network in the sense that it's not a Facebook. It's not where we're all going to share everything that goes on within our life on a daily basis.
Yeah.
We're talking about our business. We're talking about what's going on within our company, within our world from a business perspective. And so, if you're updating once, twice, maybe 3 times a week, it's perfectly acceptable over on LinkedIn. Not to say it's not acceptable anywhere else, but there's a little bit higher expectation from your audience on, say, a Facebook where they're wanting real-time interaction. They're wanting more content from you than a LinkedIn where you're going out and maybe you're finding a great article that you just read and you're sharing it with your audience. Well, that expectation, as I said, is much lower. That you're not going to pump out 3, 4, 5 additional articles within that day, but the fact that, hey, they might come back in next week and here's another article from you. So it's a lot lower pressure, I think, in that sense.
I want to ask you about LinkedIn Pulse to kind of round out our LinkedIn conversation because it's a relatively new feature. And I think a lot of the people that are in this audience, myself included, have always toyed with the idea of, should we do a blog? And just a little bit of background, a lot of people in this production industry, they'll tend to post about, what they're working on, the behind the scenes, what cameras they're using, all that kind of stuff. And some people create entire industries on just showing the work that they do and how that they got to the end result. And I think some of those people do it on individual websites, individual blogs. But for those of us that don't have a blog yet set up and are thinking about starting fresh, is there a benefit to doing something within LinkedIn, like LinkedIn Pulse or some of the other features, versus just having a blog kind of outside of LinkedIn that you manage on your own?
Yeah, I definitely think there's an advantage. First of all, would be the built-in audience. You've got that entire community right there on LinkedIn that's looking for the type of content that you're sharing, and they can search based off of that topic, that keyword, that category. You also have a whole community that's excited about reading and sharing your content. So yeah, most definitely, if spending your time building up a blog full of subscribers and keeping up another community is just not something you have the time or energy for, LinkedIn is a great option.
Let's talk about some of the other networks like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Google Plus. I mean, I'm sure there's a million others that I don't even know about. Just sort of in broad strokes, what do you think are the must-have social networks to be utilizing and building?
Obviously that's going to change a little bit dependent on the industry, dependent on the company. But for your audience, I think we definitely want to stay within the big boys, which are our visual social networks. Facebook, in my opinion, not going anywhere anytime soon. It's been the big boy on the block for a very long time. And when you look at just from a comfort level, this is where the majority of people are spending their time, not only personally, but professionally. So Facebook is an absolute must, in my opinion. Instagram would be another one. There's, every indication that Instagram is going to become the second largest social network. And there's that daily struggle, as far as the numbers are concerned. But Instagram would definitely be a must, in my opinion. Pinterest would be one to certainly consider if you are creating a lot of content and you're creating content that you want people to share. So whether that's an article or it is just photos, Pinterest is a great place to get found by a completely different audience. And that, it's again a very different network, not really social in that sense, but very, very visual, and can be a terrific place to find a whole new audience, a very different group of people that are hanging out over there, and very different in what they're looking for. But Twitter is another one of my absolute favorites. It's interesting. I get a lot of pushback on Twitter of, I don't understand the benefit. I don't see why in the world I'd want to spend any time on Twitter. And
pushback from who?
Companies that I talk to on a daily basis.
Companies that you're consulting, yeah.
Yeah, that just can't quite see the value of Twitter. And I think there's just been a big disconnect for a lot of years with both local and online businesses. And okay, so I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm over here, on Snapchat, but I'm not quite sure what I do with Twitter. And to me, Twitter is an excellent way to support everything else that you're doing. So if you are looking to create a community, and I love what you were talking about, where there are so many people that have and do, have built their business or brand, sharing the behind the scenes, sharing what they're doing that day, who they're out taking photos of, what exactly is going on within your world. And Twitter, it's a great way to promote and support all of that. So even if you have, a pretty substantial presence or any presence at all on Facebook, you're over here on Instagram, Twitter is a great option for you to kind of bring all of that for full circle. So not only are you interacting in real time with people, but people have the ability to find you through keywords, hashtags, just like they're doing over on Instagram. And, based off of your audience, Ben, there are so many hashtags that are just huge, huge hashtags to follow, to interact with. So great opportunity to build your followers on Twitter through that. And then also a great way to promote everything else that you're doing. So whether you're on Facebook, whether, you're on Instagram, cross-promoting where you're spending your time and all of your content is also another great way to use Twitter.
I'm glad you mentioned hashtags because I'm just curious, is there a place that you can go to find, what are the hot hashtags? how do you even know what people are following? I mean, obviously you can look at trending, but beyond those top 20 or whatever, which may not be relevant to the production industry, is there a place you can go online to find out what are the best hashtags for particular topics?
Oh, yeah, definitely. There's a lot of great tools out there. Hashtagify.me is one of my absolute favorites because what it does is you can put in any hashtag. So we're talking about social media. Let's just say I put in social media. Well, what it's going to do is not only show me that particular hashtag and how popular it is, but it's also going to show me all of the hashtags that are similar and also trending. So I could see social media, I could see maybe marketing, maybe business, all of the different hashtags and conversations people are having around that topic. And then I could start to identify additional hashtags that, hey, maybe I want to tap into that audience.
I'm looking at it right now. I've never seen this site. So you go in here and you, right at the top, search hashtag. I'm just going to, just for kicks, I'm going to do production and we'll see. Oh, okay, cool. All right, so it pulls up like a little graph. All right, you guys, you should definitely check this out. Hashtag hashtagify.me. This is great. So this is kind of a real-time representation of what people are talking about across just Twitter. Is this all networks?
This is all networks. Yeah. So this is a good place to start if you're doing research. So let's say you've never used a hashtag before and you're wondering, what is the best hashtag for my business, for my industry? And so I would suggest you do a little bit of a brain dump. So sit down and think about what are those terms or those keywords that people would type into Google when they're searching for you? And come up with maybe 5 to 10 of those words, and then go over to Hashtagify Me and plug those in. And what you're going to see is exactly what you just saw, Ben, which is not only that particular keyword, but it'll give you a lot more ideas of it's a great way to get a little creative because oftentimes I'll find something I just hadn't even thought about. And now all of a sudden, and what you see there too, is it shows the popularity. So up at the top, you can see how often are people actually using this particular hashtag. So the higher the number, the higher the popularity, the more active that particular hashtag is. So yeah, it's a great way to start with your research and to see, where are people that I want to connect with hanging out, and what are those hashtags? And that's another idea too. Twitter is great for this, where take a look at your competition. Take a look at those people or those companies, those brands that are actively tweeting, and see what hashtags they're using. And, on any social network, but especially where they're most popular, Twitter and Instagram, you can just click right on that. It's a hyperlink, and it'll take you over to the hub for that particular hashtag, where you can see all of the content that's being shared around that hashtag. And a lot of times you'll be able to determine pretty quickly, maybe this isn't a hashtag I want to use. It's not exactly the same type of content that I'm going to be sharing. So there's several different ways that you can start to research, and it can be very, very simple, but your competition is definitely another good place for you to start.
What are your thoughts on Google Plus?
Well, I have been a huge supporter of Google Plus since day one. Absolutely loved Google Plus as a writer and a blogger. There was just
that sounds like past tense. I loved.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, Google, they have a bit of ADD when it comes to their tools. And unfortunately, we've seen a huge decrease in the usage of Google Plus. So, to build an audience, if you haven't started building an audience there yet, it's a little bit harder these days. Not as easy to make connections, but I still think it's very, very important to have a presence there. It's one where it's shifted considerably. So dependent on who you're looking to connect with, it's got a little bit more of a LinkedIn vibe, as I think a lot of the content is very professional focused. There was a big push at the beginning to never, ever, ever allow Google Plus to be Facebook. So you don't see a lot of the personal interaction, which I think unfortunately hurt Google Plus in the long run. You see more of the sharing of business type content. We lost a lot of the SEO benefits over the years, which is why I think a lot of businesses have abandoned it. But I do think, based off of the fact that they still have communities and ways that you can connect with a specific group of people. So again, going back to being very hyper targeted on who you're connecting with, Google Plus can definitely expand your reach. And this is into, again, a whole other audience. You'll find that Google Plus tends to have a different group of people that aren't necessarily fans of Facebook, maybe not fans of Instagram, but they are looking to make those, B2B type of connections. And they've been able to do that through Google Plus. And I'll tell you, I met just a huge community of bloggers many years ago when I first started over there, that we remain great friends, very supportive of each other within our businesses. So it's still very viable. I think there's been a lot of talk about, Google Plus is dead. It's not dead yet. It's just shifted. It's changed a little bit. And it might not be the place that you want to put all of your energy into, especially if you don't have a presence there now.
You are listening to the PremiumBeat.com Song of the Week. It's called Sunshine Day by Arthur Basov. PremiumBeat.com is where to go for all of your royalty-free music and sound effects. Head over to PremiumBeat.com, where you can access thousands of royalty-free tracks for as low as $49 each. And it's not just full versions of songs. PremiumBeat.com offers a variety of versions. 15 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 60. They even offer loops. What does this mean for you? Maximum flexibility when you're mixing tracks into your video. I go to PremiumBeat.com for every project that I'm working on, and I suggest you do too. PremiumBeat.com. Let's take a quick break and talk about Kessler. The Kessler Shutter Dolly is the latest innovation in camera dollies and finally provides filmmakers with the performance and versatility dollies in its class have always lacked, until now. The Shutter Dolly utilizes standard speed rails and can be operated manually or in conjunction with Kessler's motion control solutions, CineDrive and Second Shooter Plus. For more information, visit KesslerCrane.com. And lastly, I want to talk about Shutterstock. Shutterstock.com has nearly 3 million royalty-free video clips, which is great. But really what's most important is the quality, not the quantity. And even though they have the quantity, they also have the quality. You put so much time and effort into making your video projects and film projects look the best that they can. So when you need to put in some additional stock footage, you want to make sure that that footage is of the same quality as yours or better, right? Ideally, it would enhance your piece and make it look even better. I mean, that's the point of going outside to buy footage for your projects. And that's what you're going to find at Shutterstock.com. If you haven't gone there, they've got a lot of great features that I use all the time. First of all, yes, you can very easily go to Shutterstock.com, click on footage, and type whatever you want in the search bar. But I recommend going and checking out the Director's Choice collections. These are really great, masterfully curated collections of videos in HD and in 4K in all sorts of categories. I mean, I'm looking at it now. Autumn, timely, obviously. Skylines in motion, that's a really, really nice one. We have looping animations, which is newer and really beautiful, but all sorts of stuff. There's animals and aerials and just really any topic that you're looking for will probably have a Director's Choice collection, and it's filled with excellent, excellent stuff. So, and that's just part of it. I mean, their pricing is great. You can buy packs of videos and save. What I mean by that is, let's say you want to buy 25 individual HD videos, right? That's going to cost you more than if you bought an HD pack from Shutterstock. You end up saving $250 if you buy a 25 HD pack. So there's a lot of cost savings built in. And even if you don't do the cost savings, the price is right. So I really can't encourage you guys enough. Go to Shutterstock.com, check it out. Even if you're not in the market to buy something, you just want to see cool things and maybe get inspired by other people's footage, it's the place to go. Shutterstock.com. Check it out. All right, we're going to go back to the rest of our interview with Rebekah Radice. So I want to talk about best practices online in these social media, networks. So we have these accounts. What are some tips to maybe, make sure that your tweet or your post has the most impact, or best practices on how to have things be seen or not cause controversy, or anything you can think of that would be helpful?
Yeah, well, and I think there would be several that would be consistent across all of the social networks. Obviously, communities are a little bit different. Every social network is different. So how you're positioning your content needs to be a little bit different. And what I mean by that is not only the image itself, but the context around what you're sharing and what exactly you're talking about or how you're sharing that is going to change. But as far as best practices across the board, I'd go back to what I originally said about LinkedIn, which is having a complete bio no matter the social network. And that includes creating a consistent experience. And you look around and the websites that we interact with on a daily basis, whether it's Amazon or Netflix, no matter where you go, no matter how you connect with them, Target is a great example. No matter if it's on Instagram, Facebook, on their website, you just instantly know that this is their content, this is their Instagram channel, and you want to do the same exact thing for your audience. You want to create that consistent feeling across all of your social networks so that people just, they instantly know that it's you, and there's none of that hunt and peck, as I call it, which happens so much online, where I'm like, that could be you, but I'm not really sure because maybe you've used a different name. So consistency in how you're creating your accounts. So if you're using your business name, using that same business name across all of your accounts. If you're using your personal name, doing that across all of your accounts, and then trying to claim your name as is. Because that's where it gets really confusing too, where all of a sudden you're using a business name and you're using your personal name, or your personal name wasn't available. So you're putting, funny numbers or characters at the end of it. And what you're ending up doing is causing confusion in the mind of anybody that wants to connect with you, where they're just not completely clear as to whether or not that's you. And you never want to create that wall between you and a potential connection. Just make it super, super easy for them to identify who you are. So seamless experience, filling out that bio, and then really knowing who your audience is. I think this is another big big area where so many hop onto social media, don't really know what they want to get out of social media before they do it. And for many of us, we hopped on personally and then decided, oh, wait a second, there's a big opportunity here for my business.
Yeah.
And you just don't take the time often enough, I think, to think about who is that ultimate person that I want to connect with. And then what is their journey? How are they coming to me? How are they getting to me? And what are they looking for when they do find me? So, really putting yourself into their situation as to if they're Googling and looking for you, if they maybe had a recommendation and somebody said, hey, you absolutely have to work with Ben. And now they're looking you up online. So, understanding as Ben is looking for you, what is it that he's wanting to get out of that relationship with you when he follows or when he becomes a fan of your Facebook page, and then creating or crafting your content around that. And so for me, it's really understanding the struggles that your audience is facing. What are those top 3 things that they deal with every single day that you are able to come in and be the solution? You are able to come in and be the solution that nobody else has been able to do previously. And that's what you need to think about with content too, is how can I take all of those questions and fears and the stress and the overwhelm of making a decision, and how can I take all of that off the plate of that potential connection and help them make that decision? And so much of that comes with having that clear understanding of who your audience is, who you're talking with, what they're looking for. And then once you really think that through and have a better understanding, all of a sudden creating content becomes a whole lot easier. And I think that's the next challenge that I hear so often is, I don't know what to share, or I don't know what to post, or I don't know how often I should post.
Yeah.
And so many of those things kind of take care of themselves when you get to know your audience, because your audience is going to tell you if you're posting too much, or your audience is going to say, oh my gosh, I love your content. You need to start posting a whole lot more. So you're going to feel that hunger, that appetite from them. And if you're interactive and you're talking and you're asking questions, and you're giving them exactly what they're looking for, then it will start to feel very natural in what you're creating, when you're posting it. And I think for the most part, we're probably talking about a local audience. So it's understanding, when is your audience online? When are they hopping on Instagram or hopping on Facebook? Or, is it in between? Are they college students and it's, in between classes? Or is it that they're working that second job so that they can get the career that they want? And so they're hopping on Facebook in between all that they're juggling. So it's just really understanding their habits, and what you can do to really understand that is just look at your insights. So Facebook has, terrific information data on what type of content people are interacting with, but also what times they're actually online interacting with your content. You can see that with Twitter as well through Twitter analytics. And it doesn't have to be difficult. As I said before, it can be just a very simple audit of what you've been posting, how often you're currently posting, to give you a clearer picture of, oh, wait a second, I'm getting really good engagement on this type of content. Maybe I should double up on that. Maybe I should do more of that. Maybe I should post an additional, piece of content just like that every single day. So it's going to be different for everybody. Everybody's situation is obviously a little bit different dependent on how big your current audience is and how busy you've been on social media up until this point. But best practices for the most part across, no matter the channel, no matter how big or small you are, they're pretty consistent.
And what would you say about things to avoid? If what do you see as like the one common mistake or the most common mistake or something that for sure people should not do on social media?
Spamming your channel. And what I mean by that would be you happen to have 5 minutes. So boom, 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 boom. You post back to back to back to back content. You need to space out that content, give your audience time to consume that content, interact with that content. So just because you have time doesn't mean your audience wants 3, 4, 5 posts in a row. So you need to think about where, if you are going to post 2 to 3 times a day, what are the best times for you to be able to do that? And that would lead me into my second one, which is a lack of consistency, which typically comes with a lack of planning, where you haven't sat down and taken the time to figure out how often you're going to post or what type of content you're going to post. So you roll out of bed and you think, oh, man, I got another day. I got to come up with something I have to post.
I have felt that a few times, yes.
Yeah. And so with that comes the pressure to perform, and you're frantically trying to find something. And what ends up happening usually is it's something you look back on that you're like, yeah, that didn't do very well. And my audience didn't really care about it. So planning ahead will really help you get consistent and being very realistic with yourself, with what you can commit to. Because I know you're running 100 miles an hour on some days, and you're here, you're there, and you're meeting with people, and you don't necessarily have a couple of minutes to think through, hey, this is the content I want to create. So a couple of tools that can help you, dependent on just your own personal, what you enjoy working within. Google Docs is a terrific way to just manage content. So you can just drop in as you have ideas for posts, drop that in. Google Calendar. If you really want to stick with something very, very visual, Trello is another terrific app that you can basically build out your posts in advance for all of your social networks. So you could put in your images, you could put in the context that's going to go around those. You could use a Google Calendar to set reminders. There's just so many different ways that you can keep yourself on track and consistent. It's finding what works best for you.
And lastly, because we're running out of time, and this is such great content, and we're going to talk about where people can go to learn more about you and perhaps hire you for consulting and all that. But lastly, and I know this is a huge topic, and we probably could do a whole episode on it, but just to spend a couple minutes on building your audience. We talked a lot about what to do with the audience you already have, but what are some good ways or tools or practices that we can learn how to build an audience?
Well, first of all, is getting consistent with the content. So when your audience or potential audience starts to come and check you out, there's actually content there for them to double tap on or for them to like or react to. So making sure that if you're just getting started, get some content up there. And so as they start to trickle over, they're able to see, oh, okay, this is what I can assume they're going to be sharing. You want to set that expectation right out of the gate as to what they're going to get when they follow you or like your page. That would definitely be the first one. Second one, it's going to seem so simple, but it is the quickest way to build a following, which is get interactive. So go out and find your competition on Instagram, on Facebook, and see who's following them, who's liked their page. Are these people that are potential clients of yours? You have to imagine that if you're looking at similar pages, if you're looking at similar profiles, they probably have cultivated a very similar audience to what you're looking for. So you can start to create a conversation on Facebook. You could make it a point every single day to go out to 5 different pages and start to comment on their content. On Instagram, you could go out and find 10 or 20 different profiles that you double tap on their content, and then you make a very thoughtful comment where now all of a sudden you're doing a couple of things. You're creating a relationship with that person, that profile, that business, and then you're also creating a hyperlink back to your profile so people can say, oh, wait a second, he seems pretty cool. Or I really like, what they had to say. And so they click through and maybe now they follow you. So you're creating kind of those breadcrumbs back to you where people can get to know you, learn a little bit more about you. And so much of that comes from being diligent in doing that. And if you don't have a whole lot of time, when you plop down on, the couch at night, spend 15 minutes and just go to your Facebook page and go out and find those other people, those other pages that you can connect with, and start to increase your reach on Instagram, on Twitter, so that you're not only elevating awareness around your brand, but people are actually hearing you or seeing you interact. So they know you're a real person. They know that all of a sudden you're a person that has thoughts and has an opinion on something, and you're going to start to clearly differentiate yourself from everybody else out there that isn't doing any of that and isn't being strategic in creating those connections. So, like I said, Ben, I know it might seem simple to talk about interacting, but most you talk to any of the successful people out there that have created, Instagram, and they have 1 million followers now. They did that because they were going out every single day and building those relationships, building those connections, interacting with people, letting them know, hey, I'm here. Because unfortunately, as we know, social media moves at a lightning, fast pace. People forget about you. I do it every day and I feel terrible where I go and I think, oh my gosh, I completely forgot, about this person and I love their content. So you really have to make a commitment to staying top of mind with people by being interactive.
Well, I am certainly by no means an expert at this thing, and I have very, very low amounts of followers and, relatively to people that are really doing this. But I can tell you in my experience, I had, not great social media. I haven't had good social media presence on all of my various networks. So my Facebook was okay. I had all these accounts, but they were all just kind of okay. I didn't have consistency to them. And then a friend of mine had recommended, why don't you just focus on Instagram for a little bit and see what happens? And I sort of changed my strategy where I did 1 picture a day, every day, and it was always a behind the scenes. And I've been doing that for about 8 months now. And when I started, I had about 300 followers on Instagram, and now I'm up to 1,600. And it was nothing more than just changing the strategy. And believe me, I'm not spending a lot of time on this. I think about what I'm going to post every day, but it's not like a 5-hour thing. I take a couple minutes, I put something up, and that's it. And that is with not a lot of work. And believe me, if I can get any sort of success in social media, then anybody can, because I'm horrible at it. So I found that sort of that unifying your message, making sure it was consistent, all of those things really do work at my level, which is very small. So I'm sure they would work on a large scale too.
I love that you just made that point. And I absolutely love what you've done with Instagram. And look, for you, you figured it out. You figured out, what can I share every single day that my audience is going to love? And you've also been very realistic with yourself as to how much you can share
Yeah.
and how often you can share that. And you've trained your audience to know that too now. They've probably come to expect, hey, he's going to, share a picture today. And where's Ben's picture? So they're seeking you out. But that was really my point about if your hurdle is you don't have time, you do.
Yeah.
We all have 15 minutes out of the day that, we can sit down and build a social media presence. It does not have to take a ton of time or a lot of hard work. It's going to take consistency. It's going to take you being committed to getting in there, really figuring out your audience, and then showing up on a regular basis. And then it's also going to take you just figuring out what those few tools are that are going to help get you there a whole lot faster. And once you do that, then I think you're a perfect example of what you can do in a very short amount of time.
Rebekah Radice, social media strategist. You can find her online, of course, at RebekahRadice.com. And it's RebekahRadice.com. And of course, I'm going to put all the links to everything in the show notes. But that's probably the best place to go for you, right, Rebekah? Or do you want to mention a couple others?
No, that's terrific. They can connect with me from there on any social network. So nope, that's a perfect home base.
Excellent. And you go to the site, you can sign up for her mailing list, and she offers consulting. So if you guys want more in-depth information, by all means, go there, reach out to Rebekah and get yourself an hour or two of her consulting. And I'm sure you'll be happy that you do. Rebekah, thank you so much for being on the Go Creative Show, and we'll have to have you back to talk more about social media. I'm sure 6 months from now, it's all going to change.
Maybe 6 minutes from now.
I know. Exactly. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming and sharing your information with our audience.
Oh, thank you so much. My pleasure being here.
Well, there you have it. I hope you guys learned a little bit. Did you? Am I going to see better, more effective posts from all of you? I hope so. Thank you, Rebekah Radice, for coming on the show and sharing your valuable information. Very much appreciated. Well, I guess there's no better time than now to plug my own Instagram page. Instagram.com/Ben Consoli. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Now, that's where I post all of the behind the scenes for my own company, BC Media Productions. You can see what we're shooting with, who we're working with, all sorts of fun stuff on there. It's all gear all the time. I want to thank our sponsors: Hedge for Mac, Rule Boston Camera, Kessler Crane, NewsShooter.com, Shutterstock.com, and PremiumBeat.com. Without these people, the show wouldn't exist, so support those that support us. And lastly, I have to thank Matt Russell from Gain Structure Sound, because he mixes and masters this show and makes it sound so delicious. You can find him online at GainStructure.com and on Twitter at GainStructure. See you guys next week. Bye.